Guys, I'm a Star Trek writer, so you don't have to be, right? Got a buddy, he used to do a movie blog, Tom, and he used to say, I review movies and talk about movies so you don't have to, right? And the bottom line to it all is that when I look back now at writing for Star Trek, I guess because we're in such a crossroads, right? Right now as fans, I'm a fan first and foremost before I wrote for Next Gen and Deep Space Nine and Voyager, and I'll always be a fan, okay? But we're at this crossroads where we're not quite sure what's going to happen, right? Strange New Worlds, I cooled on that. It was I used to watch it first season or so. It's going to be wrapping up soon, and then Starfleet Academy, no one really cares about, I guess, but they're going to give us one more season of that. And so the crossroads is there's many questions. What's going to happen in the future, right? What's going to be the new TV show and or film? Now, last I heard, they were thinking of doing a feature film. In fact, I think that's still on the table in terms of something greenlit or more in development. Because you never know with these projects, right? You go to Star Wars. Look what happened to Stargate. Everything was a go. Everything was greenlit. And then, no, not going to happen. I'm still bummed, boy. I'm still bummed over that. I am completely butthurt over that. I don't know about you guys, but I know they said maybe they were going to try to maybe take it somewhere else, but I don't think so. Amazon and MGM owns that, right? The bottom line is that as Star Trek fans, we're just at this weird place where we're not sure what's happening. Now, I'm with a lot of people that a lot of my subs, say on the channel, you guys, remind me and sort of confirm what I think. I don't even want a Star Trek show. I don't even want anything Star Trek unless it's pretty good, which of course you could say it's a tall order. That's yeah, okay. You don't want anything until it's really good. Well, yeah, and I see, and we've all seen the Paramount Plus offerings. And you guys can like it. Look, I don't want to piss people off or alienate people and say what you like is bad. That's great. But I think the great number of Star Trek fans, the great majority of people have either wholly rejected that stuff or, sort of half-assed like it, half-baked. And so that's where we are. So I was reflecting on being a Star Trek writer, just being a TV writer, and all the other things I've written, which were not produced, but you write things, you write scripts on spec, on speculation. Now with Star Trek, with Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, I sold those properties, that material. I sold the scripts, but it was on speculation. There was no contract in the beginning for me to write it. So with Next Generation, that was my first. That was purchased. Then I wrote a Deep Space Nine. That was purchased. And then I started pitching to Voyager and Deep Space Nine and writing for both, writing scripts for both. Again, on speculation. Because Next Gen was ending. Next Gen was going to the movies. It was going to Generations. And I was just ending college. And all. But the point is, then I started to look at other shows, of course. And I wrote a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, one of my favorite shows. I wrote a Boston Public. That's the school show, the Boston Public, a high school show, which Jerry Ryan came on, I think in the last season or so. And that was a pretty hot show. And then I created my own sitcom. I created something called Outsourced, which I think later did become a sitcom. It has nothing to do with me, but it was similar theme, which was weird. And it was not even a year later, I think. So they say, a lot of times they say independent creation in Hollywood. Something happens where, similar themes and vibes and story ideas are shared by independent writers. So, and then I've written a lot of other, treatments, movie treatments, show treatments, and such. But again, looking at where Star Trek is now, if there was ever a future, there's probably some future. They're going to give us some new show or movie. I'd far prefer a show. Even Mike Sussman's Star Trek United working title, a Archer, sort of a return of Captain, now maybe Admiral Archer or President of the Federation. I'll even really go for that. I think the more I look at that, that's a really interesting idea. If you can pull that off, they keep making kind of parallels to, say, the West Wing political. Hey, why not? Why not? It certainly has the meat of so much Star Trek, maybe particularly specifically Deep Space Nine, but Star Trek has always did politics, delved in politics, and did it really wonderfully. Thought-provoking, cutting edge, ripped from the news. You never want anything too on the nose, maybe ripped from the news, but obviously Star Trek has done many things which were current at the time, which people were talking about. Even going back to the original series, of course, So, so again, this is a real crossroads. I think this is a time for Star Trek fans to reflect, to wonder what we're going to get in the future, and maybe even sort of demand or start to really talk about it and make your voices heard. Make your preferences and your likes for, say, Star Trek United. Then, of course, Star Trek Legacy, perhaps a 7 of 9, a Captain show. The only reason I'm kind of down on that, or Jerry Ryan herself has said she wasn't really interested. She kind of turned it down. So, and again, to me, it sounds like been there, done that. Yet another ship show. Why is that specifically different? Why is that dimensionally divergent and different? Whereas Star Trek United, it's different. It might not be the most spectacular show in terms of maybe action, but then pretty sure they're going to be doing something with the Romulan War. And there's a lot of things you could hang on a Star Trek United premise from what we have now. Who knows? All right. So what do you think? Give us your thoughts and feedback. Certainly give us your thoughts and feedback about where you feel Star Trek is now, which is, again, it's almost like a limbo, no man's land. Oh, then I hear, what was it, yesterday? The beginning of the week or so, that there's a plan afoot, a campaign to try to block the merger of Paramount and Warner Brothers, which, wow, I don't know how that could be sort of legal, or I should say viable, like in the legal sphere. I'm no lawyer. I don't play one on TV or write law, legal shit. But I don't know how that could truly be legal unless it's something to do with fairness in terms of labor or economics. I think they said something, one of the articles I read said something about it's a statewide thing, I guess in California, or I don't know. I mean, again, maybe you guys can shed light in the comments. Maybe you can talk about that. But I'm speculating, saying, well, Paramount, Skydance, David Ellison, what they just did, that merger, he just took over that. So what would the Warner Brothers merger be? Would that be in jeopardy too? Because they're still ironing out, I guess, maybe even the Paramount Skydance deal. It's really mind blowing to me. I always, and a lot of my friends, we talk about this. Disney seems to take over everybody, right? 20th Century Fox, Lucasfilm, ILM, the Muppets, and nobody seems to raise any beef with Disney, but somehow Paramount, Skydance, Ellison is somehow shady. Don't get it. You riddle me that. Give us some perspectives, guys. So give us your thoughts and feedback. Keep on watching for new stuff. I try to, I love your ideas. Give us talk about feedback and ideas, and let's keep going. Live long and prosper. Hope you're enjoying. Hope you're subscribing. See you soon.
Here's the best sci-fi on YouTube.
On a sci-fi guy, of course.